Star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells. And of course, Filipino fans turn out in full force to cheer her on.
Of course, I'm very grateful for all the support that's been coming my way. And it's really heartwarming to see that they really, they make the effort and they take the time to come out and to support, and it makes the experience for the player totally different.
Sending absolute shockwaves through the entire sporting universe, Alex Eala shattered every conceivable record during her awe-inspiring debut at the 2026 Indian Wells. Fans fought so viciously for a seat that admission costs instantly morphed into something completely astronomical. The final tally? A jaw-dropping $5 million generated at the box office, harvested from a single, solitary showdown. We aren't simply witnessing a milestone for this fierce Filipina prodigy. This constitutes a monumental, paradigm-shifting epoch for the legendary California tournament. Her epic collision with Ayanna Yostasta essentially rewrote the rules of the game, pushing entry fees into uncharted, stratospheric territory that no solo contest had ever dared approach. Desperate spectators absolutely bombarded the box office platforms, obliterating the servers as a tidal wave of humanity desperately clawed for a glimpse of her inaugural masterpiece on this legendary court. For months, the electricity surrounding her meteoric ascent had been practically vibrating in the air. Yet, the sheer magnitude of the explosion that detonated at Indian Wells genuinely caught the entire planet off guard. The very second the schedule dropped, an intoxicating, almost feral anticipation gripped the global fandom. Once the virtual gates opened, the reality became glaringly obvious this wasn't merely a game, it was the ultimate battle the universe had been starving to see. Keep in mind, this was merely the opening round. Valuations erupted into the stratosphere, while international legions fought tooth and nail to claim their spots at what promised to be the most colossal extravaganza the venue had ever hosted. The iconic paradise of Indian Wells, historically celebrated as the absolute pinnacle of luxury sporting events, was permanently mutated in a single afternoon. Hauling in $5 million from the gate for one clash is something that simply defies reality. However, wielding an irresistible gravitational charisma, she didn't merely summon her fiercely loyal Filipino diaspora. Absolutely not. It felt as though the entire Earth had mobilized, descending upon the arena with a singular, unyielding obsession, witnessing her magic in the flesh, regardless of the financial bleeding. The air itself crackled with high-voltage static, the collective adrenaline was dangerously contagious, and the suspense threatened to blow the roof off. But the wildly screaming devotees weren't the only ones left entirely breathless by this cultural tsunami. Behind the scenes, the elite executives sat paralyzed by the sheer volume of the frenzy, frantically scrambling to control the colossal stampede of humanity swarming their pristine grounds. Do not mistake this for a fleeting fluke. This absolute madness is merely the opening sequence of an unstoppable force that experts have terrifyingly dubbed the Eala effect. It is a total paradigm shift that has violently inverted the entire sporting landscape. Whether tracking astronomical box office numbers or explosive social metrics, her blinding star power is an inescapable truth backed by cold, hard proof. The raw data speaks volumes, stripping away any shred of doubt. By summoning an unfathomable $5 million during her virgin appearance in the desert, this prodigy has authored a legendary epic destined to be whispered about for generations. Yet, framing this merely as a financial triumph entirely misses the point. We are bearing witness to a monumental, seismic shift tearing through the very fabric of the women's tour. She is mutating into an unstoppable titan, an absolute juggernaut whose cultural dominance has obliterated even the wildest projections. Every single competitor is officially on high alert because this phenomenon is going nowhere. Her terrifying ascent wasn't manufactured by clever marketing. It was forged in the fires of undeniable victory. You only need to glance at the statistics to see the truth. Legions of followers are migrating across continents just to catch a glimpse of her magic, making it inevitable that the California desert would become her latest conquered territory. Whether conquering the blistering courts of the Australian Open, owning Miami, shutting down Dubai, or now electrifying the desert, she ruthlessly commands the most massive armies of spectators on the planet. What truly elevates this narrative, however, is that her aura doesn't merely spark temporary chatter. It has ignited a full-blown, undeniable cultural revolution. Lifelong skeptics who previously couldn't care less about rackets and nets are suddenly shedding blood for front-row seats the second her name drops. Just ask Jessica Pegula, an absolute powerhouse on the elite circuit. who recently spilled the harrowing details of crossing swords with this phenom under the blistering Miami sun, delivering a chilling testimony about the high-voltage chaos that now trails this prodigy like a shadow. The veteran stepped onto the court anticipating a standard-issue battle, only to be completely blindsided by a supernatural spectacle. The sheer ferocity of the audience surpassed anything she had encountered in her entire professional life. A suffocating, raw adrenaline flooded the stands, while the terrifying, unyielding devotion showered upon the rising star bordered on religious fervor. She painted the scene as absolute lunacy, pointing out that regardless of the geographical coordinates, the tribal loyalty following this girl defies all logic. It hardly matters if they are sweating in Melbourne, battling the Florida humidity, or braving the Middle Eastern heat. The masses will mercilessly mobilize by the thousands just to witness her warpath. These people aren't passive observers. They bleed and breathe through every single swing of her racket, deeply tethered to her relentless, week-by-week metamorphosis into an absolute terror on the professional circuit. The sheer volume of bodies materializing to back her is staggering. We watched it unfold down under, where the organizers catastrophically miscalculated, stuffing a gladiator of her magnitude onto an embarrassingly tiny, suffocated court. The exact same chaos erupted right here. You could literally be locked in a hotel room miles away and still feel the earth shake from the monstrous roars of her followers tearing through the night sky. It is nothing short of mind-bending. Her supernatural power to summon these oceans of humanity serves as undeniable proof of the deeply visceral blood bond she shares with the masses. With every sunrise, her mythical status swells, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are dealing with a completely unprecedented, history-making anomaly in the athletic realm. Her disciples will endure absolute torture just to catch a glimpse of her magic, happily surviving grueling endless queues, burning away agonizing hours navigating digital box offices, or simply loitering in the parking lot just to bathe in the radioactive aura spilling out from the arena. Witnessing such fierce loyalty is practically unheard of, loudly declaring how thoroughly Eala is shaking up the entire sport. And trust me, it isn't merely the crowds paying attention. The absolute titans of the court are watching this phenomenal ascent with wide eyes. Novak Djokovic, an undeniable icon of the game, recently stepped up to champion her, publicly crowning her as the undisputed pinnacle of Philippine tennis history. When a champion of his caliber drops a statement, the gravity is unreal. The entire athletic community goes dead silent and takes notes. His endorsement of her raw skill and magnetic box office appeal completely cements her as an absolute juggernaut, making her arguably the most thrilling and bankable athlete swinging a racket right now. Regarding Alexa, look, absolutely. She has totally dominated the conversation lately, and perfectly rightfully so. Athletes emerge from all over, but her hailing from the Philippines, that has become a colossal paradigm shift. She stands completely alone as the ultimate trailblazer, the premier racket wielder from a massive nation, dragging a monumental tidal wave of fresh hype right behind her. Rewind to the Australian Open a few months back. Mobs of desperate supporters practically camped beyond the arena walls, praying just to hear the echo of her swing. Those waiting lines stretched out to infinity, leaving countless hopefuls stranded at the gates. Yet, remarkably, nobody cared. The ticketless masses deliberately lingered in the streets, feeding off the electric roar of the venue, absorbing the infectious vibe, and feeling utterly blessed to merely breathe the same air as sports history. That right there perfectly illustrates the awe-inspiring, almost terrifying grip she maintains over her followers. Now, as the 2026 Indian Wells showdown dramatically heats up, her runaway fame is clearly strapped to a rocket ship. Dropping a mind-melting $5 million at the box office for a single opening bout? That is merely a tiny appetizer for the incoming feast. Every single time she steps onto the hard court, she transcends being a mere elite competitor, actively morphing into a worldwide cultural phenomenon whose shadow completely eclipses the sport itself. The army rallying behind her is entirely without equal, leaving the traditional establishment with absolutely zero choice but to bow to her earth-shattering influence. Those astronomical admission fees, heavily paired with that historic $5 million haul from her initial Indian Wells appearance, loudly broadcast exactly how much raw leverage this youthful prodigy currently wields. She exists in a completely untouchable league regarding pure hype, and the desperate hunger to witness her live is guaranteed to violently explode even further. Forget labeling her a mere up-and-comer. She has become a full-blown hurricane, violently tearing through the women's bracket. While the global sporting community stares with their jaws practically hitting the floor, one undeniable truth remains locked in. She isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You cannot ignore how dramatically she has reshaped the game. Actively smashing milestones left and right is simply the thrilling opening act of what promises to be a legendary saga. The universal verdict is officially in, loudly declaring that this girl represents the absolute destiny of the entire sport. So, what is your honest read on this violently explosive trajectory to the very top? Can you genuinely recall any athlete ever igniting this level of sheer hysteria and box office frenzy? And what about those astronomical entry fees? Would you genuinely be willing to empty your wallet just to say you witnessed a piece of living history unfold? Does it shock you how completely she has mobilized a literal army, captivating not only her fiercely loyal compatriots, but also hardcore purists scattered across the entire globe? Given her seemingly supernatural superpower to pack colossal stadiums entirely to the brim, is she entirely locked in to become the ultimate poster child for the women's tour? Or will some lurking rival miraculously sneak in and snatch away the crown? Drop your deepest theories on this cultural earthquake and how it is permanently mutating the sport down below. We are absolutely dying to read your comments.